Hello. Hey everybody. Today I want to discuss a topic that is I guess kind of special because what we're going to talk about is what is rational. What qualifies as rational and what qualifies as irrational. so anyway, uh let's go straight into it. Reality, or the nature of reality, is not accessed only through direct sensory perception. That is my claim. Other modes of access, pattern inference, I don't know if it's inference or inference, embodied cognition, intuition, abstraction, and non visual integration, are not optional extras. They are fundamental to survival and understanding. So that's my claim. And that is not controversial if stated honestly. This is how the human species has always survived. So to me, what's controversial is the cultural myth that says only what is seen, measured, or measured directly is real. Anything else is imagination, and I call bullshit. Anything else is superstition or delusion. And that is the myth that we believe. And I call it a myth because it's a myth, right? That myth is false. And I'm calling that out. So, why is only the eyes, right? This whole myth about only what the eyes can see is true, is stupid. Because, check it out, vision itself is inference. The brain does not see reality. It constructs a model from incomplete data. Optical illusions prove this constantly. So your eyes actually don't necessarily see the world as it really is. That's also a myth. So most real things are not directly visible, such as gravity, time, electromagnetic fields, other minds, intent, danger, disease before symptoms, social threat, structural instability. And so those are all things that we can't see right away, right? You don't know someone's intentions. You can't see that. A manipulator banks on the fact that you see what he presents to you outwardly and objectively, right? You couldn't be a manipulator if people could see you. You're banking on the unseen when you're manipulating people. That's the whole thing. And if you were to go by the outward appearance, like if this person says, oh yeah, I'm a nice guy, you're going to go for that shit because they look nice and gangly and awkward, and you're going to get fooled. So yeah, it's not something that we should really do as humans because it would actually cause us to not survive. And that's why I don't subscribe to that humbug. Anyway, let's see what else we're gonna go over here. I got some notes here. If we restrict ourselves to what the eye see, we would be dead as a species. Exactly. And that's not rhetoric. That's evolutionary fact. Evolution proves that that's true. Simple as that. Evolution proves that. Not materialist dogma. Materialist dogma is wishful thinking, right? The key here is that species that relied only on surface perception did not survive. That's an evolutionary fact. Survival required anticipation, pattern recognition before confirmation, reading signals that were not yet visible, acting on incomplete information. That's part of it. Sometimes you have to act on incomplete information. Sometimes you do not have the luxury to wait until all the facts present themselves. It's just not possible. You don't always have that luxury. That would be nice, but your ass wouldn't be able to survive if you always did that. So, I mean, you can die trying, but I'm just saying. Let's see, what else can we go over? I have a lot, but just bear with me here. Yeah, so survival required anticipation, pattern recognition before confirmation, reading signals that were not yet visible, acting on incomplete information. A prey animal that waits to see the predator clearly is already dead. A human who waits for objective proof before responding to danger is already compromised. Evolution selected for non-sensory inference. That's not mysticism, people. It's not mysticism. Mystics do not practice magic. They just do that, what we just talked about. They integrate patterns that they recognize before the information actually presents itself in objective reality, right? Where everyone can see it. They anticipate. They do all those things. And that's what mysticism is. Mysticism is direct access to the nature of reality in other ways other than a science lab or just strict observation through the eyes, you know? There are other ways to access reality, and that's fact. So, let's go on. I know I sound a little bit aggravated, but I am, because it gets on my nerves that mystics get such a bad rep and that we're thrown into the same category as religious nuts and stuff, right? Or dogmatic people. And I have seen atheists who are so fucking dogmatic, who just think everything is bullshit and woo-woo, and they just believe the science. It's always, I stand by the science, and the science only, right? And that's the only way we can observe nature. Okay. But anyway, let's move right along. Let me see. I should be putting my finger on this shit because I'll be losing where I'm at. Okay. Yeah, so that's not mysticism, that's biology. Science itself violates the eyes only rule constantly, because science heavily depends on inference, because you never see the electron, by the way. Models, which are maps that are not the territory. Indirect measurement, theory preceding observation. Every major scientific advance began as something doesn't add up, even though I can't see it yet. If scientists truly followed only what is seen, science would not exist. That is true. The real issue, and why people resist what I'm trying to say here, right? The resistance isn't intellectual, it's psychological and social. Accepting that reality can be accessed beyond the eyes means accepting that control is limited. Authority is fallible. Not all knowing is institutional. Some people perceive patterns earlier than others. That threatens hierarchies. Exactly. So the culture pretends intuition equals irrational, embodied knowing equals unreliable, non visual cognition equals suspect. That's sus, y'all. Even though everyone uses it constantly. Everyone. So that's the hypocrisy that I'm pointing at. I'm not saying reject the senses. By all means, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is the senses are inputs, not arbiters of truth. Reality is inferred, not merely observed. So that is also the position of Kant, phenomena versus nomina. Then there's Pierce, who talks about abduction, which I don't know what the hell that is, but we can look that up another time. Modern cognitive science predictive processing models, embodied cognition theory, yeah. So yeah, there are other people who see it that way and make that same exact point. So yeah, I want to go to somewhere else too. Give me a minute. So yeah, all I'm really saying is that exclusively relying on surface perception is intellectually and evolutionary unsound. Full stop. It's very unsound. But I want to go into something else here. Just give me a second. Let me find where I had that shit at. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. I kind of did this just off the top of my head though. Shit, not that. I think it was in here. Okay. Man, I got notes every damn where. On different phones and everything. Let's see. I'm almost there, I think. But yeah, just what do y'all think about that? You know, do you think that you can go by only what the eyes see, or do you think that there's always an underlying reality that we need to pay attention to? I think that we need to pay attention to the underlying reality sometimes more so than what the eyes can see. And I really believe that that is a fact, because we see that throughout evolution, that it was never the species that saw things for what they so-called are that survived, because it just doesn't work like that. I would be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts though, so please comment. I haven't did a whole lot of content on my channel. I'm actually trying to get it off the ground. I do know I have to make more content. Just been a little hard for me lately, but I'm trying. Right now my car is not in the best condition, and I'm waiting on my mechanic to fix it so I can get back on the road, so I have some extra time to spare. Okay, so now I want to go over some stuff about materialism. I would say that materialism is administratively convenient, not philosophically sound. And materialism says only what can be measured is real, right? That's what materialism says. And we just went over why that's bullshit. Remember that. That is bullshit. That's not a truth claim. It's an optional rule. I mean, an operational rule, not optional. um, it allows institutions to say, if we can't quantify it, we don't have to deal with it. If it's not measurable, it's not our responsibility. If it can't be standardized, it can't threaten authority. That's bureaucratic sanity, not metaphysical truth. Consciousness, intuition, meaning, intention, trauma, insight, creativity, all of these are hard to administer, so they're declared not real. And I'm standing up for those of us who know that these things are real, who experience these things. This is our own subjective experience, and we're tired of being dismissed. You know, we have a right to be here. We have a right to exist because we're not crazy. We're not delusional. What we're saying is true. Materialism stabilizes mass society. Materialism works very well for industrialization, capitalism, large-scale governance, government. What does that mean, that word in itself? To govern the mind, because ment is Latin for mind, mentis, govern the mind. That's what government means. Call me a conspiracist, but it's true. Predictable labor, technological production. You cannot run a factory, a market, or a military on inner knowing, subjective meaning, non-local inference, embodied intuition. So those things are downgraded, not because they're false, but because they're destabilizing. Idealism threatens hierarchy because it implies mind is primary. Well, I don't say mind because I think there's a difference between mind and consciousness, and let me explain. In my LFM model, there's an extension to that where I talk about the hierarchy of consciousness. And what I mean by that is, the way I see it, it's consciousness, and the mind is the individual mind, like you and me, but it's a fractal of consciousness integrated, into the physical body or the brain, the interface. So the psyche of every single human being is the mind, but it only contains a fraction of consciousness, so to speak, right? It's a fraction of integrated consciousness, and then we call it mind. So that's how I see it, but that's fine what they said. Authorities internal before external. Meaning precedes mechanism. That's dangerous to systems built on obedience and external validation. That makes you too sovereign, Only measurable equals real is self-refuting. This is the part that should embarrass materialists, but it rarely does, because I guess they lack self-awareness or something. They don't understand how dumb it sounds. So we should ask them this question. Can you measure the rule? Only what is measurable is real. No, you can't. That rule itself is not measurable, not observable, not empirical. So by its own standard, materialism fails immediately. It survives only because it is repeated, not because it is coherent. So you have basically a bunch of freaking brainwashed puppets running around who just want to see it that way, because at the end of the day, they profit off that shit. They profit off of you believing that shit. They profit off of it. Simple as that. This is how they keep siphoning you, your energy. People confuse method with reality, right? Science uses measurement as a tool. Materialism turns the tool into a dogma. That's the error. Science actually says we measure what we can. Materialism says only what we can measure exists. Those are not the same statement, and the second one does not follow from the first. The leap is philosophical laziness dressed up as rigor. I agree. Fear plays a huge role. This matters. If consciousness is primary, then intention matters. Responsibility increases. Inner states have consequences. Meaning is unavoidable. Materialism offers psychological relief. It's just chemicals. It's just neurons. It's just random. No one's really responsible. I was born this way. It's my biology fault. It's my genes. I can't do anything about it. But we know that's not true because, like, for example, alcoholism can be genetically passed down to you. That doesn't mean you have to become an alcoholic. You can actually beat that, right? So to say that you are completely enslaved to your DNA, that makes you a slave. Straight up, you're a slave. You know? And we all struggle with stuff like that. Ain't nobody perfect. That's not even what I'm saying. But to just say that you can't do shit about it because that's just how you're made, or that's just how it is, that's just biology, that's bullshit. That's the same excuse some men use to be cheaters and not have their testosterone under control. Blame it on the testosterone. I couldn't help but stick my penis into everything that moves. I couldn't help it. It's the testosterone. Like, nobody ain't trying to hear that shit in 2026. Get a grip. I'm just saying. You know, being spiritual or being an idealist or whatever, or a mystic, what we believe is that, you know, we demand maturity and responsibility. We don't want to be managed by some system that tells us the rules to everything. I believe in such a thing as unspoken rules, right? We all innately know things. We know it's wrong to harm children. We see children as the future. We all have that same instinct, right? And that's how a lot of things are. That's how it is with a lot of things. You don't need nobody to tell you that it's wrong to fucking do certain things, right? I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with this whole setup of materialism. So anyway, most people don't believe materialism. They default to it. Right, because that's just the right thing to do. That's just what you're taught from the time you're freaking come out of the womb. Because watch how people actually live. They trust in intuition in emergencies. They read intent instantly. They respond to tone, presence, energy. They act on meaning, not data. They only become materialists in arguments. That's right. Like, even materialists live by these unseen things, but they don't want to admit it. And again, it's only for the sake of an argument where they all of a sudden defend materialism, that must be the truth. And it's like, no, because you even live by those things, those unseen things. So materialism is a rhetorical shield, not a lived worldview. I would agree. Why idealists always hit the same dumb argument? Because materialism has one move. If you can't measure it, it's not real. If you can't measure it, it's not real. That's all they ever say. It's not an argument. It's a gatekeeping phrase. Because obviously you can't measure everything, so that just gives them the right to easily dismiss everything anyone else says. That keeps them in authority. That keeps them in power. Until you can prove it, I have done nothing. You know, if you can't catch me, that means I didn't do it. Like, that's how they do it. It avoids engagement, it avoids nuance, it avoids consciousness, and it avoids responsibility. And it's slick and it's manipulative and it's wrong. That's why it feels so intellectually insulting. Because it is. Bottom line, no fluff. Materialism dominates because it simplifies governance, it protects institutions, it lowers existential responsibility, it's easy to teach, it avoids deep questions. That's right. That's right. Keep being shallow, surface level. Don't deal with your own inner demons. It's all doesn't matter. Just live your life, have fun, and live in denialism. I call it denialism because they take denial to such a level they might as well turn it into a religion. Denialism. Not because it's true. They do this not because it's true. They do this because they don't want to face responsibility, I guess. And all these reasons I just said. It simplifies governance, protects institutions, their institutions. It lowers existential responsibility, meaning we don't got to change. We're going to keep doing this as long as you idiots believe it. Because, they say a motherfucker can only do to you what you allow. It's easy to teach, They can simplify it. It's so simplified, anybody can swallow it. It avoids deep questions, and that's avoidance. They're a big old avoidant narcissist. Anyway, yeah, that's about it. I'm just unimpressed by that shit. Unmoved. I'm unmoved by it. You know? Let's see, is there anything else I want to bring up? So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? I would be very, very, very interested in that. I think that's about it for now. I think I made every point I was trying to make. I just want to say that, I believe that I'm very free of dogma. I don't believe in dogma. And it's not because I'm rebellious, really. It's because I believe in principles. Principles that guide me. I don't need dogma. I know it's wrong to lie to somebody who fucking cares about me. Why would I lie to them? I know I don't need to pretend that I'm perfect. I have hang-ups, addictions, not drug addictions or anything, but I struggle with like cigarettes and stuff. Like I'm not perfect, but I'm also not gonna run around and act like I am and portray this false image, of myself. And I don't want to be limited by dogma. I have an open mind. I'm willing to consider new information. I have changed my mind a million times throughout my life. I wouldn't say that I have ever changed as the core person that I am, but I have changed in many ways as far as what I've come to believe, or, new information that changed my worldview in certain ways. I'm not saying that I'm not open-minded, and I'm not saying that intuition is infallible or anything like that. At the same time, to attack mysticism and intuition and all those things like that, and then claim that materialism is the truth, it's just an institution. And I don't want to be institutionalized. I want to break free from that in every way possible that I can come up with. Period. Point blank, period. I want to be free. Truly free. I mean, in that way. I mean, we're not ever truly free because we don't never have like full control of anything. But at least I don't want to be boxed in by dogma. And at the end of the day, we do have to respect people's subjective experience. We can't pick and choose. We can't say, oh, we respect the subjective experience of a person who believes they were born in the wrong body and they think they should have been a kangaroo. We can't say that we're going to allow that. But when a mystic says they're a mystic, we label them as crazy, insane, and we don't respect them at all. And I'm pushing back against that. That's all I'm saying. Alrighty. I guess I'm out of here now. Bye.